agenda. I have some to read very quickly. 2.1, recognitions added. Item 3.3, recognition of Okaloosa County educators for earning Google Educator, Apple Teacher, and Microsoft Innovative Educator designations presented by Superintendent Chambers. And so I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move we approve.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. And that brings us to section 3 on the agenda, recognitions. And so first of all, on 3.1, we have the recognition of Mrs. Wanda Avery on the occasion of her retirement, presented by Superintendent Chambers. Superintendent.
Good evening.
Good evening, Superintendent.
So this is an exciting moment, this recognition and the next. As you know, whenever you get to a point of retirement and then you look back and you reflect, I know there's so many memories that people talk about when they think about their service in education. And this first principle that we're recognizing, just want to give just a little bit of information and then I'm going to read what is on the nice vase. So first of all, we're here to recognize Miss Avery. And Miss Avery, I'm actually going to have you come up so you can be beside me as we say some of these nice words about you, if you don't mind. As you can see, she's ready to take the mic. So first of all, just a little information about Miss Avery. So Miss Avery started as a science teacher at Fort Walton Beach High School. She did, well, I'm not going to say what she just said. Then she moved on to Crestview High School, where she had administrative duties. She was an assistant principal in the district at Crestview, an assistant principal in the district at Shoal River, and then the principal at STEM, where she's been since 2015. And when you think about Miss Avery and what she's done in this district, and you talk to people who know her, they talk about her love for students, they talk about her love for education, and really enjoying in what she does each and every day when she comes to work. And I know some of you have worked alongside her, and you know the passion that she has. And once again, when you've been in the district for 35 years serving students and serving teachers and staff, it's something that is more of a calling than a job. And I'm going to read you what is on this vase here. And it says, in grateful recognition of the dedication, achievements, and leadership of Wanda Avery, admired and respected for 35 years of distinguished service to Okaloosa schools. And we thank you for all that you've done. 35 years, I know can go by quickly.
It did.
And we thank you for all that you do for students. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this gift, and 35 years I never missed a starting of school. And on beginning of school, week before last, I thought of everybody. But then I smiled and I said, I'm happy to be home for today. Retirement is good. Enjoyed it. But I've enjoyed my time with Okaloosa County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Avery. Congratulations.
You gotta come up to it.
Thank you.
All right, so item 3.2 will be the recognition of Mr. Mike Fantasti on the occasion of his retirement, presented by Superintendent Chambers.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to have Mr. Fantasti come up, and we will not have any trouble figuring out who he is based on his retirement attire. This is how he was the last year of school.
Pretty much.
That's right. So just a little bit of quick information. So Mr. Fantasti, he's taught business ed, he's taught math, he's taught driver's ed. He's been a dean of students at Niceville High School, an assistant principal at Niceville High School, and then principal of Lewis School from 2011 to 2019. And a lot of us obviously in here, we know Mr. Fantasti. I've had the privilege to work with him. And if you know Mr. Fantasti, there's two things that you know. One, he has a heart for students, and the other is he has an unwavering, dedicated commitment to his teachers and to his staff. And when you ask any question about the success of Lewis School and all those A's that they achieve,
Staff, teachers.
exactly what he says, teachers and staff, and he never takes any credit. If you try to give him any credit, he quickly says it's the teachers and the staff, and that's something that I'll never forget about Mr. Fantasti. Mr. Fantasti, I know in 30 years of commitment, once again, to Okaloosa County, your kids went through the system, your wife was a teacher, and he gave his heart for this district and all that he's done. So I just thank you very much for what you've done, and I know you're going to have great time in retirement.
I already have.
All right. I was a little premature. In grateful recognition of the dedication, achievements, and leadership of Mike Fantasti, admired, respected for 30 years of distinguished service to Okaloosa Schools. Congratulations.
Thank you. These guys know me, I'm a man of many words, so really, I see a lot of them out here today, and really, it's true. It's due to the people that I work for, that I work with, and I was lucky enough to be in the same school for 9 years, meaning I got to choose most of the people at that school, and I think Dr. Driver and I hired over 80% of the people at school, and there's no doubt when you get that ability to hire all the people that you want to, it's going to be a great time. And I just thank them. I see them all here today. It's wonderful. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Congratulations. Photograph.
I will be your wife.
No,
Congratulations.
All right, so that now brings us to item 3.3, recognition of Okaloosa County educators for earning Google Educator, Apple Teacher, and Microsoft Innovative Educator designations, presented by Superintendent Chambers. Mr. Chambers.
All right, so this is also another exciting moment. So technology and technology skills, there are some of us who are learning. There are some of us who are pretty good at it, and then there are some of us who get these type of certifications that the individuals who are receiving them today, that they receive, and then they make someone like me go, yeah, I'm not very good when it comes to technology. But what I would like to do, if you don't mind, is have Liz Bears come up and just explain a little bit about these certifications.
Sure. Welcome, Ms. Bears.
Hi. I'm the instructional technology trainer, and it is my privilege to be able to work with teachers all across the district as they are bettering their skills for the classroom. And today it's my distinct pleasure to present to you a number of exceptional educators. These teachers have recently achieved recognition for their efforts to become certified in either Apple, Microsoft, or Google education systems. The criteria for these awards is set by the companies themselves. So the teachers have come together or worked on their own. We've done face-to-face trainings, we've done online trainings, and then studying on their own over the course of the last year. About 35 teachers have participated in one form or the other, and tonight we have about a little less than 10 who have completed it and are ready to receive their award. So in each case, they studied, they practiced, and then they were tested on skills as well as knowledge. And you might wonder why this is such an important thing. but teachers who take the time to work in bettering their skills are going to be impacting our students, not only in their classes today, but also in the jobs and the workforce of tomorrow. So, we're going to start with achievement as certified Apple teachers. And for this, we proudly recognize Jill Russ from Plough Elementary. If you could come up. You stay up there. And Lindsay Leach from Florosa Elementary. Dawn Massey, her principal, is going to come and receive the award for her because Lindsay couldn't be here tonight. And Ann Hagan from Ruckle Middle School. These are our certified Apple teachers. And I'm proud to be standing here with them. That's a tough test. It has 8 different sections. Awesome. Thank you. Congratulations. For achievement as a Level 1 Google Certified Educator, we have several teachers, and these teachers sat through a 3-hour test. There were over 6 pages of skills they had to demonstrate, and I think it's 140 questions in addition to that. So these are Ann Hagan of Ruckle Middle School. Again, come on down. Jill Russ of Plough Elementary. Morgan Walker of Shoal River. Mary Jeter of Pryor Middle School. And Angelica Espeseth of Riverside Elementary. I don't think I missed anybody. I do have others on the list who are not here, and that's Charlotte Wadsworth of Baker School, Jessica Sharp. Sorry, go ahead and give Charlotte what she did. Jessica Sharp of Shalimar Elementary, and Angela Marshall of Ruckle Middle School also. Sliding, we're sliding. Okay, now we're balanced. Now we're sliding back in. One more. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you all. For the Microsoft Innovative Educator, we recognize Dustin Keith of our Instructional Information Technology Services. He is a Microsoft Innovative Educator, and he unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, so I'll receive it on his behalf. It might look funny with my face in his face.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. And what I'm going to do is do a 2-minute recess in case folks wish to go to dinner. We're recessed for 2 minutes. Convene the regular school board meeting. We are scheduled to have a public hearing, so in that case, I'm going to recess the regular school board meeting and convene the public hearing. If you'll go to item 16.1 on your agenda, all the way at the bottom, colleagues. Excuse me, incorrect? 17. 17.1. Public hearing on the school district's 5-year capital outlay plan presented by Mrs. Rita Scowlin, Chief Financial Officer. And so we had a lengthy workshop where we discussed the capital outlay budget and answered questions and so forth. So at this juncture, is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this item tonight? And colleagues, you know this is an information discussion item. It's not an action item. Okay? Well, seeing none, I will end the public hearing and we will reconvene the regular school board meeting. And so we will now scroll back up. We'll see if the chairman can get the numbers right this time. And we will go to section 4, visitors. Mr. Todd Cyrus, are you here, Mr. Cyrus? Okay, there you are. Welcome. Mr. Cyrus went through the process to be a visitor and to have his name appear on the agenda, and so Mr. Cyrus is here to speak with us about the school district infrastructure funding. And Mr. Cyrus, I know you saw all the protocols and all that, so you know that you have 4 minutes, and my colleagues up here may have questions or comments, or they may not. All right, so are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
District board members, Mr. Superintendent, my name is Todd Cyrus. I reside at 4805 Grove Street in Crestview. And first and foremost, I'd like to publicly thank you for the jobs each and every one of you do in your elected positions.
Thank you, Mr. Cyrus.
So I'm here this evening based upon some personal observations as well as some other recent occurrences within the district. As by way of background, my family and I relocated to this area after my retirement from the military. And one of the reasons we chose here was the quality of the school system from an academics perspective. And we also believe in being strongly involved in the communities wherever we're at. Whether the military sent us to Base X or Base Y, we tried to be involved in the community. And we carried that with us here when we moved to Crestview. In full disclosure, my original intent was to solicit this body's support this evening in securing funding for the sole purpose of maintaining and in some instances totally revitalizing the district's facilities. However, in the past few days it has been brought to my attention that this revenue aspect is being worked at the private sector level and might be rolled out in the very near future. As you know, many of the district's facilities, both on the educational and support sides, aren't getting any younger, nor are any of us. And of course, with this aging comes associated problems, and I think all of us at a certain experience level understand that. Mr. Superintendent is excluded out of that. Indeed, we should all be keenly familiar with the Etheridge Stadium at Choctaw, and I think that should be our collective call to action. Funding is desperately needed to maintain the district's facilities and in some instances, totally revitalize them. Mr. Chairman, just to illustrate the magnitude, and while researching this subject and looking at the district's 5-year facilities work plan, I didn't have to go past the cover page to become quite disheartened when all I see are $0 for capital outlay for facilities. Rather, it appears this isn't really a plan at all. It's more of a wish list of priorities if funding were available. And I just used the word disheartened. But as a citizen, a taxpayer, and a voter, the word unacceptable is more appropriate. The time for action is now. A course correction of being proactive as opposed to reactive is what we now need. It would be foolhardy for any of us to think that putting a Band-Aid on could cure cancer any more so as slapping a coat of paint on and it fixing a structural deficiency. The district needs both near-term and long-term revenue streams to address this, and hopefully that will come to fruition in the near future. Mr. Chairman, I stand ready to assist in any way whatever.
Excellent.
In my humble opinion, this is a non-political, commonsensical issue. And my hope is once the funding piece is taken care of and the timing is right, this issue will be rolled out in the public domain and brought back before this body in the near future. I hope at that time we have the board's full support. With that, Mr. Chairman, again, I thank you, and I yield back any time remaining and welcome any questions you or other members of the board might have.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cyrus. Well, let's see if they have any questions or comments. Anyone? Dr. Kelly?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Most of you know that I've lived intimately in 5 of those buildings, and I've served as principal in 3 of them, and I couldn't concur more. So you certainly have support in the body of this board member.
Thank you.
Mr. Cyrus, I appreciate you coming, and I think it's great, and I agree with you. However, not everybody in the public agrees with you when you start talking about raising taxes, even if it's a sales tax. So what are your thoughts on a way to get across to the public how dire this situation is? Because we didn't get here yesterday.
Yes, ma'am. This has been a challenge that has occurred over time. I think we all see that. My personal opinion on how you frame it to the public, really that's not going to be my forte, but if it were up to me, I would say, and again, one of the reasons we chose to relocate here was how this school district performed perennially. We did our research. I travel a lot to neighboring counties, and I see what their facilities are like, and I come back here to Okaloosa County, and I'm always drawn back to look at how our students perform academically. Shouldn't we be giving them the same facilities that are commensurate with how they're performing and how our teachers are performing? To me, that's a no-brainer.
Thank you.
We can't keep doing what we've always done and expect to get something different.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cyrus.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent?
Cyrus?
Mr. Cyrus, I think.
So I do have one other thing to say. First of all, I very much appreciate you coming before the board and sharing these sentiments. And board, you know, we had a capital outlay board workshop on Thursday, and this discussion came up. So we did have a minor discussion on this. One of the points that was made on Thursday that if in fact we got to the point where we might go forward in entertaining a half-cent sales tax, and I'm going to segue for 1 second, because when you think about over 60% of the buildings in our school district are over a half a century old, one of the oldest bus fleets in the state of Florida. So when you think about all those things, but one of the things we talked about is it's vital to have this be a grassroots effort, that this comes from the citizens. And I will say, so after Thursday's meeting, I was approached by a citizen who was interested in developing a committee to lead this effort, and I'm sure there'll be more communication there, but I agree wholeheartedly with the board's sentiment that this would be a citizens-led initiative. And just once again, Mr. Cyrus, I appreciate you taking the time to be involved and share the sentiments that you shared this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cyrus. All right, so that takes us now to Section 5, Administrative Personnel Appointments. 5.1 will be the appointment of an Assistant Principal 2 at Northwood Elementary School, recommended by Superintendent Chambers for approval. Mr. Chambers.
Dr. White and board members, I bring before you Heather Williams. Heather Williams was born and raised on the western slope of Colorado, where she later earned her bachelor's degree in elementary education and a minor in history from Colorado Mesa University. After relocating to Florida in 2004, she taught U.S. and World History at the Okaloosa Academy before joining the faculty at Northwood Elementary School in 2005. While at Northwood, Ms. Williams taught 4th and 5th grade before transitioning into a Title I reading position. In 2016, Mrs. Williams earned her master's degree in educational leadership from the University of West Florida. Shortly thereafter, she moved to Bruner Middle School, where she was honored to serve as an assistant principal. She and her husband, Matt, are the proud parents of 3 children, Jordan, Braden, and Ava. Jordan currently serves in the Air Force, And Braden is at basic training, where he's working towards earning the title of United States Marine. Ava, their youngest daughter, is in the 1st grade. Miss Williams could not be more excited about returning to Northwood and looks forward to serving the Crestview community once again. Heather Williams.
Thank you. So, board members, we need a motion.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
I'll second.
second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Is she here?
She is.
Okay, bring her forward. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Mr. Chambers and the board for your continued confidence. It has truly been an honor to serve as an assistant principal at Berner Middle School. I'd also like to express my gratitude to Mr. Massey and Mr. Taylor for their guidance, leadership, and camaraderie. Words cannot express how truly excited I am to be going back to Northwood to work with Dr. Good and the dedicated team of teachers, many of whom took time away from their own families tonight to be here in support. I am truly honored by your support, and I appreciate you. Finally, and most importantly, I'd like to thank my family, especially my husband, Matt, who couldn't be here tonight. He's actually presenting at a conference in Atlanta, so he couldn't be here. But again, I want to thank you and know that I will continue to work tirelessly to support the Northwood community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, so for Northwood and Reader families to come forward. If you haven't heard this little one speak, you have to listen.
So cute.
Stay in the back.
Yes, we're in the back. We're in the back.
We're lopsided.
Can you come up?
Good try.
And then y'all, yeah, you're. It's been a while. And then if you will go that way, just don't move too much. Just right there. Okay. You're good.
She's a look at her hair.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Congratulations again. All right, I'll do the same thing. I'll give a 2-minute recess. Move on to item 6.1, public comment. Members of the public desiring to address the school board completed a blue card that I have here in my hands, and I'll call the names. If I don't say your name correctly, please forgive me. And you'll have 4 minutes. So the first one on the list is Mr. Doug Woodley. And Mr. Woodley would like to speak about infrastructure funding. Welcome, Mr. Woodley.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for a few moments of your time. My name is Doug Woodley, and I'm the president of the Niceville High School Band Boosters. As such, we provide the logistical and fundraising support for the band program, which currently has about 300 students, a little more, the biggest student organization on campus. Several of us from the boosters are here in regards to the proposed sales tax increase to fund refurbishment and repair of school facilities. Our goal is to see that proposed sales tax pushed by the school board for inclusion on the next possible ballot. I could probably go on for quite a while to quantify and qualify the need at the school. I'm not sure it would do a lot of good to go issue by issue with what we see on, for instance, our Niceville campus. It's easy for anyone walking the halls there, or quite honestly looking at a calendar, to see that the school is in need of some attention. The administration and staff members have done incredibly well in terms of keeping that facility looking as good and functioning as well as it has, and I think Mr. Cyrus alluded to that very well. But those of us with teenagers understand that they can destroy their very own house. Now, you put thousands of them over many, many decades, and the school is just going to get a little bit worse for wear. It's a daunting task for sure. The maintenance personnel have done extremely well in that respect. But I believe the true issue at hand really is not establishing that need, but rather in communicating to the community the need and in order to gain support for such a measure. And you perfectly brought this up a little bit earlier on. We live in an area where many people, kind of like myself, have a tendency to go, tax increase, no way, not doing it. Or either that or they'll say, I don't have kids in school. Why does it matter to me? Just like people say, I don't want to work towards the road construction because I don't drive a lot. It's sort of an empty logic, but it's certainly something that you have to battle in this sort of situation. What my organization as the Boosters offers is a solution to this issue of selling, if you will, this sales tax increase. We volunteer our time, our energy, and our expertise to this board. Certainly we'll be willing to sit on any committee that may result from this effort. We also offer something unique in that we have lines of communications within the community. As I said, we have 300 students plus all of the family and all of the parents therein. Board meetings, band events, all the football games, and our social media outlet. We offer our influence to the public in order to support such a measure. And I think that may answer a little bit of your question in terms of how do we get this message out? And honestly, as the board booster, or as the band boosters, that's what we do, is communicate in some respects the band director's vision for the band, but in this respect, the hope for the sales tax inclusion in the next ballot. Now, I have no doubt this issue's been tried before. I understand how public administrators sometimes are hesitant to propose something that can really be labeled in some ways as a necessary evil. No one wants to push for a raise in taxes normally. It kind of goes against what the average American worker is wanting. And I can state myself as a perfect example. If you're going to find a fiscally conservative, recently retired military officer who is willing to come here and ask you to push for a tax increase, it must be an effort that I feel is pretty much worth the time. It is absolutely worth it, and I think I stand as a good example, and Mr. Cyrus certainly as well. I don't think there's any doubt the school facilities need attention. Every kid deserves that well-kept, nice, updated, and honestly healthy environment in which to learn. It creates a stronger learning environment, and as a result, it will yield better, stronger graduates that we bring into our community. And that is where it really is the business of all citizens of this area, in that these students are going to be your friends and neighbors with whom you are working soon. So I believe that's the message the band boosters are ready, willing, and able to share. And I'll yield my time and answer questions, take comments.
Any comments or thoughts, colleagues?
I just wanted to thank you, and I know surely you've spoken with Jody Dunn and Crestview High's band, okay, because we speak regularly. My daughter went all through his band, so
Absolutely.
do communicate with him if you haven't.
And I would just say that, just to kind of sum up probably what you're alluding to here, is that public education is an investment in our future.
Yes, sir.
And that's the way I look at this. It's an investment. So
Yes, sir. I understand I don't want to mislabel them in terms of calling them short-sighted, but it really sort of is to say, I don't have a student there, so it doesn't affect me. I think it greatly affects everyone in the community.
Well, and I would add to that the quality of living in a community is directly influenced by and reflected by the pride in its schools.
Absolutely.
So to me, that's the number one reason
ma'am.
for doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, I'd like to say, excuse me, that I was kind of almost chuckling when we were talking about the band boosters getting the word out. As a former high school teacher, listen, we can put an ad in the paper, but that's the most important way to get information out, is through that. That was social media before it was in
Absolutely, and
technology.
I sort of have a benefit in that I'm the president of the band boosters, but for the last few years, I've been the announcer of the pregame and the halftime show. So I say what I want. I have a captive audience of thousands. You can't do anything. The band doesn't go on until I say so.
You're quite an asset then. So
Exactly.
Thank you.
Maybe gaming the system, but it works for us.
That's right. Yeah, thank you.
All right, very good.
Chairman, if I may, and I appreciate you and Mr. Cyrus both, because the community support is what will make or break this issue. Without the support of you folks, we'll not be successful.
We
So
stand
thank
ready
you.
to assist in any way.
Great.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you
Thanks very
sir.
much.
All right, so the next card I have is from Alan, is it Bosky?
very good.
Oh, very good. Come forward, sir. Welcome. And you're here to speak about an elected or an appointed school superintendent.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I wasn't here last month when the last meeting, and I heard it came up, and so I was looking forward to take this opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just a concerned citizen, but I have 5 kids and 8 grandkids, and and very much of an invested interest in the school system. I agree, this is our future right here, and we need to take it seriously. I have researched the schools system nationally from its inception, and I'm proud of what our country stands for, and especially this county. And it has stood always with what our nation was founded for. Are you familiar with the term stack the court? You probably heard that term. And that's for the intention of allowing a few judges to legislate from the bench. I'm very much concerned about that. And so I want the opportunity for the electorate to determine the future of the legislators, the legislators and the legislature. And similarly with our school system, I think it should be in the hands of the electorate, who have a strong vested interest in freedom and just the concern about our patriotism. That's the word I was looking for. And I believe our county and our school board has done a really good job with that, but I'm looking ahead. I'm looking into the future. And so I would very much disagree with an opportunity for 3 of the 5 board members to decide the future of probably the most important position in the school system, the most impact of anybody in the school system. And so I just raise my hand and say I would favor of, I've helped several elected officials get elected in their campaigns, and I would like to do the same thing to ensure that our county stays and our superintendent stays in elected office. And I thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Stand by. There may be
Okay.
comments or questions.
Sure.
Anything? All right. Very good.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right. I believe it's Mr. Jeff Burnett. And Mr. Burnett's to speak about school facilities, I believe.
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Superintendent. I thank you so much for the opportunity to address you. This is actually not my first time addressing you on this issue, but I forgot. I live at 6373 Haven Miss Lane in Crestview. I am the chairperson of the SAC committee at Davidson, and when we last met, which granted was last school year now, we unanimously voted that we also really agree that we need to do something about the infrastructure and the facilities in our school district. We thank you, and we're so pleased to live in Okaloosa County. We have top-notch schools, not just in academics, but in arts and athletics. You guys have done an outstanding job of setting the bar so high and creating a legacy across the board. However, as has been mentioned by several of my peers and colleagues tonight, we stand concerned that our future doesn't look as bright as we would like for it to. And in order to maintain the legacy that has been set before us, we urge you guys to really consider an impact fee of some sort, the half-cent sales tax, anything that we can do. Last I was here, and granted by now my data is a little out of date, but somewhere in the vicinity of 87 to 91% of school districts across our state already have something like this in place. We are one of the very few school districts that does not offer something like that, and our students do deserve that. One thing that we talk about and we prize highly in Okaloosa County is student safety, and we often hear the phrase, student safety is a primary concern, and I believe that the incident with the Choctaw Stadium demonstrates that student safety is at risk here, and I believe that maintenance, that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Maintenance is one thing, but we really need to look at creating better infrastructure and really funding this initiative. It has been asked, how do we do this? And I just want you guys to know that from where I sit, just as Joe Public, just as a random member of the community, I think there's a groundswell of support for developing our infrastructure. I think that now is a great time. In fact, I feel like now is maybe even a little too late. I think that in order to get this and continue this momentum, it will take public education and helping people understand the problem at hand. But I'm pleased to know that I'm surrounded by brilliant educators, and so public education shouldn't be something that deters us from really making this next step. So I just add my voice and add the voice of really the entire Davidson Middle School community in urging you guys to consider getting a half-cent sales tax at the earliest that we can.
Excellent, excellent, sir. Any questions or comments, colleagues?
When I was listening to you, and I remember you coming before, and I appreciate that, you're coming from Davidson, and what I was thinking is, that's one of our newer facilities, and you're up here saying, we're having problems, and I'm thinking, I taught in a school that's decades older than Davidson. I mean, I still see Davidson as one of the new ones, so if we're looking at that problem, it just kind of puts it in perspective. That's what I want to point out.
It does. And actually, Davidson is now 20 years old. It is one of our newer facilities, but a 20-year-old facility being one of our newer facilities should raise eyebrows. And my daughter goes to Bob Sykes, which is one of our older ones, but we need help.
And I think you may be the last speaker tonight that is willing to speak about a tax increase, if you will. And I guess the thing that I would say is that the kind of support that you're talking about and the other folks have talked about for this kind of initiative is just critical. And I say that because the last time this school board sent a referendum to the county commissioners to place this on the ballot, it was in 2010. Anyone can look at those results. Out of 52 precincts, only 6 voted for this measure. And so what that tells us is that the support from folks like yourself, school advisory councils, band, athletics, parent groups, student groups, faculties all around the county is got to be critically important this time. And there is some reticence because that was 9 years ago. And if it fails again, can we wait another 8 to 9 years? That's the real concern. So we're very grateful that you would come forward and speak in a positive way about this. I like to think that maybe we're beyond some of the issues that have kind of visited upon us in the last couple of years, and maybe now might be the time that the voters would be willing to tax themselves to improve our schools and to make them better for our students. We're very grateful for you being here.
Grateful for the opportunity. Thanks again.
All right.
And Dr. White?
Yes, sir.
With that being the last speaker on this issue,
I think. I haven't looked at them all of them.
With it potentially being the
Right.
last one, just very
Well,
short
he
and
pivots
sweet.
well.
I just do thank you for taking the time out of a busy evening to come forward and speak on this critical issue.
And again, wasn't Davidson a school that we were able to build it because
We
of
borrowed money.
initiative?
And Destin.
Yeah, right.
Destin Middle.
That's right. Okay, so we have some more. Mr. Doug Davis, and Mr. Davis is here to speak on the elected superintendent of schools. Hi, Mr. Davis.
Hey, thank you for letting
Yes,
me
sir.
speak tonight again. I just want to make the plug again to elect this superintendent of schools. I just feel that it's just something you hear all the time. People say, I don't feel I have a voice. I don't feel like I make a difference. And so with that in mind, I just can't believe that we would let the opportunity, the freedom to vote, to have that vote, that privilege to vote for people and to have a choice in our community to decide who leads our kids and makes a difference in our community. And that's just so important. I really believe that. And I know the other side has good intentions, but I just really believe that to be able to vote, to me, is just so paramount. And I certainly don't want to give up any chance to vote. whenever I can. So just thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you very much.
Any comments or questions? All right, thank you, sir. So I have Ms. Karen Clark, I believe, who's here to speak about the school board, school superintendent vote. Welcome, Ms. Clark.
First of all, I want to thank all of you. You've done such a great job, and we're so blessed, really, to be in this area. And again, I too, just like the other two speakers, I'm so thankful that we're Americans, and that's our main privilege, that we do have that vote. And I know this is our old teachers here, no taxation without representation. And we know our students, and we know the teachers, and so when we go to appoint them, it's, you know, it's our heart that we want the best, and so we don't want that taken away from us. I'm just going to be real short, but thank you so much. I want the privilege to be able to vote for the school superintendent and not appointed. Thank you.
Ms. Clark,
Thank
stand
you.
by.
Bless you.
Let me do the courtesy. And any comments or questions, colleagues? All right. Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have Mr. Ed Gilbert, and I saw him earlier. Welcome, Mr. Gilbert. I know you know the routine, 4 minutes, whether you need them or not.
Great to be here once again. Thank you for all that each of you does for our school district. As you well know, I am a proponent in maintaining our current process of electing our superintendent of schools. Okaloosa County, despite an unfortunate circumstance, continues to distinguish itself as an outstanding school district, something each of you can be very proud of. That being said, it is no secret that there is a movement afoot to change the way in which you do business. For the past few Sundays, Okaloosa voters have been besieged by ads laced with negative connotations and half-truths, inferring that Superintendent Chambers is a, quote, politician superintendent, end of quote, is totally unsubstantiated and outright insult on his performance as well as his character. Yes, for Okaloosa Schools has spent thousands of dollars to try and convince you in the district that we need change. Change from what to what? What is the purpose? What more can we expect in the next negative ad? Again, as I asked last time, where are the qualified, guaranteed, quantitative, and qualitative benefits from a proposed change? As you know, these attempts exhorting you to make a hasty decision to include a referendum in March will cost the taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars in additional ballot and associated costs. They don't mention that in their ads, nor do they say why it is so important to have it done in March. But I know that you know why the March timeframe is so important. Should you decide to spend taxpayer dollars for the unneeded request for change, and the change is approved, are you willingly and sacrificially prepared to give of your time and talents to take on the hiring process and all the baggage that goes along with it? Are you prepared to then divide your time between the duties you were elected to perform while simultaneously searching for a superintendent? Each time I come into this building, I cannot help but notice the picture on the screen in back of you and a sign on the outside of the building. The sign on the outside building says, "In God We Trust." One represents our great school district, and the other gives the glory to the one who makes possible all that the district has accomplished. My prayer is that in making your final decision, that you reflect upon both of them and do that which is best for the district and honors the one you put your trust in. I'll close with Proverbs 21:30. There is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. God bless you all, and thank you.
Stand by. I just,
Trying to get
I
out
don't want
of
to be
here again.
criticized or not giving them a chance.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments, folks? I didn't think so, but we asked. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you again.
And so I have Ms. Diana Gilbert. Hi, Ms. Gilbert.
Hello, good evening again. I am here again stating my support for the elected school superintendent. And again, I do not want to lose my right to vote just like the others, and my voice, I don't want to lose my voice in such an important decision. At the last meeting, I also listed my concerns about the extra cost involved in appointing a superintendent and the usual higher salary that usually comes with appointment. That is a concern. And remember, one of my other concerns was the ideology that an outsider might bring to this area. And I named numerous examples of what has been going on in schools throughout the U.S., including Florida. And I don't believe that any of those examples would be appropriate in schools or here in Okaloosa or for the welfare of our students. So, you know, we have come a long ways in women's sports. And so I just want to bring something up that's happening in women's sports. So in some schools, biological boys are identifying as females, and they're allowed to compete in female sports. In Connecticut, biological girls worked and trained so hard and lost in a track championship to 2 transgender females who took first and second place. And to make matters worse, the school district is now being investigated for alleged retaliation against the parents and these girls who complained about this policy against them. So I don't want to see that happen. In Nebraska, a school banned candy canes in the shape of a J because they were too religious, because the J could represent Jesus. And 5th graders voted to put inspirational words shaped like a cross. Now, these are 5th graders. They voted for this, like a cross, on their yearbook. Words like love, imagine, dream, explore, learn, but it was in that shape. And the PTO, when they saw it, they nixed it for these 5th graders. And then a school principal confiscated the Bible of a 4th grader and told him he could not read it during recess or meet with other Christians. Fortunately, this was quickly resolved when a religious liberty organization stepped in. But really, shouldn't a principal and a superintendent know what that principal did was inappropriate? They should have already known that. I'm also concerned about the rate of turnover on appointed superintendents. The average turnover, as I've heard, is like 3.5 years for appointed and 7.1 years for the elected. So I have to wonder why. Are they fired? Are they leaving for better pay? Or do they just not like the area? So what's the reason for the big turnover that's kind of goes around with that? And also I read that the organization pushing for this wants to the referendum to be in the March primary. So I looked up the data at the Supervisor of Elections. So in the 2016 presidential primary, 39.13% of the people voted. In the primary in August, 29.04% of the people voted. And the general election, 75.7% of the people voted. And then I just went to 2018, just kind of a little comparison. In that primary in August, 26.5% of the people voted. And the general election, 62.5% of the people voted. So my question is, why would we want to make such an important decision at a time where almost 50% of the people don't vote? So I just like to leave that out for you to think about. And
Ms. Gilbert, your time's just about up.
Pardon me?
Your time
Okay.
is about up.
And in closing, I would just like to ask, what makes anyone think that an appointed superintendent would do better than an elected superintendent, especially since the Okaloosa School District has an A grade and is number 3 in the state? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Stand by. Any questions, comments? All right, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Ms. Linda Jenkins. Welcome, Ms. Jenkins, and what this shows is that you wish to speak on the referendum.
Well, I want to say I do not want this to even go to a referendum because I cherish my privilege and my right to vote. And I really believe that this is affecting the most basic unit of our society, which is the family, the parents, and the precious children. And I really believe that every parent should have the right to vote for a school superintendent. We have lived in this county since 1973. We registered in 1974, and I've tried to vote in every single election. And when our daughters were 18, we took them down and got them signed up to vote. And so I really believe that this is, I mean, if it starts here, when is it going to stop in our society? And so I don't even want to see it go to a referendum because we all, most all of us, everybody really cherishes their right to vote, whatever elected official we're voting for. And that's my take on it. I really believe that we need to keep our rights, because where is it going to go? It could become a slippery slope in this nation. I'm not saying here, but it could affect other counties, other states, and even go national. So we need to cherish what we have, and I want to thank you.
All right, thank you. Stand by just a moment, ma'am.
Okay.
Anything? Okay, they're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I have Mr. Patrick Ryan. Sure. All right, welcome, Mr. Ryan. I know you know.
Good evening, thank you.
You know the routine.
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you very much. Good evening. There's been a lot of discussion in and out of board meetings recently on the amount of taxpayer dollars actually and potentially going to our former superintendent for back pay, retirement benefits, legal fee reimbursement, et cetera. And I would like to commend you for the courageous stand that you took 2 weeks ago on the issue of reimbursement of legal fees. I'm confident that the taxpayers appreciate having a board that is going to stand up and defend their interests. In that light, there is another issue that hasn't really received public attention yet. Florida Statute 1001.51, paragraph 12B reads in part, and I quote, "Any district school superintendent who knowingly signs and transmits to any state official a report that the superintendent knows to be false or incorrect, who knowingly fails to investigate any allegation of misconduct by instructional personnel or school administrators as defined in Statute 1012.01, which affects the health, safety, or welfare of a student, or who knowingly fails to report the alleged misconduct to the department as required in Statute 1012.796, forfeits his or her salary for 1 year following the date of such act or failure to act," end quote. In Governor DeSantis' bill of particulars filed during the recent suspension, specific charge number 16, which is on page 17 of that document, alleges this violation. The governor's bench memorandum also mentions the penalty of forfeiture of a year's salary on page 3 of that document. So it appears that if the statute had been enforced, approximately $134,000 would be returned to our district. Instead, the governor's decision means that our school district and ultimately the taxpayers of Okaloosa County won't see this money. It's yet another bitter pill for the taxpayers to swallow. Now, my intent is not to criticize the former superintendent nor the governor. Furthermore, we believe the governor acted within his legal powers, and I don't believe legal action on your part or a demand that the governor or the commissioner of education collect the money would have any effect based upon their evident desire to put the entire episode in the rearview mirror. There is, however, one option I would urge you to consider, and that's writing a letter to the governor and the commissioner of education to relay whatever feedback you've received from the taxpayers of Okaloosa County in regard to their being stuck with a rather large and potentially larger bill. Such a letter could also include an urgent recommendation to consult the local school board on such matters in the future. Certainly, individual taxpayers like myself could write such letters, but having it come from the very entity, you, that is elected by the voters to provide oversight and represent the citizens in school district matters will carry much greater weight. I believe the recent visit by the Commissioner of Education shows that the governor likely understands some of the negative reaction to the financial implications of his decision. But I believe the taxpayers of Okaloosa County would appreciate their elected representatives at least passing along their concerns to state officials. So I'd like to propose tonight that one of you make a motion, either tonight or at some future meeting, to draft such a letter, which you could then discuss and vote upon sometime in the future. Thank you.
All right, stand by, Mr. Ryan. Any questions or comments, colleagues? All right. Well, they may in fact do so later, as you suggested.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And so I have lastly Mr. Dick Rowe, who lives in Niceville, and Mr. Rowe would like to speak about an elected or an appointed superintendent. Welcome,
evening.
Mr. Rowe.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Dick Rowe. I live at 336 Ponte Vedra Lane in Niceville, and have been here since '92. And I think I can recognize the name about 5 out of 8 or so. So I'm glad to be here, and I feel like saying, well, ditto, I'm number 7. After Mr. Davis and Mr. Bosky, Ms. Clark, and Gilberts, and probably one other that I've left out. But I'm heartily encouraged, this is my first time before you, but I'm heartily encouraged to hear from those people and to hear their compliments to the board here. And I agree with them on the preference of having a vote of the citizenry of the county on electing a superintendent of schools. Mostly because I think if you have a child who will or is currently in the system or has been in the system, you certainly deserve a right to voice your preference on who to elect. And I greatly appreciate having people come before me, and I've seen a number of you too, to get to know you better and to hear your background and hear what your plans are for the school systems here. Everything else is just a great big compliment on everything that I've experienced ever since I've lived here, and very pleased with it. And any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe, for helping me out with that. Anything, colleagues? Excellent. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Rowe.
you.
Yes, sir. Can y'all help me pass these down to Ms. Mary for the record? Okay. All right, folks, so that takes us through public comment, and we will now move on to Section 7, Committee and Staff Reports. Of course, these were information items that we discussed in the workshop. 7.1 would be in-county travel, paid for the period of July. And then 7.2 would be out-of-county travel, also paid for that period as well. All right, then moving on to consent agenda. Item 8.1 is the approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, colleagues, so scroll on down now until we come to Section 9. And this will be the superintendent's human resources recommendations. All right, 9.1. Employees on administrative leave, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. And as you remember and as you know, this is an information item. 9.2, Deferred Retirement Option Program Drop, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. And this is also information. And then 9.3, Cleared Certification Requirements and Issuance of Contracts for the 2019-2020 school year, presented by Mrs. Karen Peak, Program Director, Professional Services, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
I will move that approval.
Motion by
I'll
Mr.
second it.
Destin, second by Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.4, Out-of-Field Report for the 2019-2020 school year, presented by Ms. Karen Peak, Program Director, Professional Services, recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion, Dr. Kelly.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.5, Employment Separations, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.6, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
I
Motion.
move.
Motion, Ms. Vancheck.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.7, employee transfers presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
So moved.
I thank Dr. Kelly.
Second.
Mr. Destin seconds. Any discussion?
I'm ready.
See none? All right, all in favor, let's vote.
Getting ahead of the game.
Okay, you only get to vote one time. Motion carries 5-0. All right, 9.8, employee suspension presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryan. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.9, employee suspension presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
I'll move it.
Motion, Ms. Vancheck.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.10, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of illness, injury, medical examination presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
I'll move.
Motion, Dr. Kelly.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. And then 9.11, leave without pay, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
Move we approve.
Motion, Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryan. Any discussion? Let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. No items were moved to discussion, and so moving on to Section 11, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business. Mr. Destin, I know you gave us some information Thursday. Is there something else?
There's a small addition. As I report on Thursday, I believe the majority of the actual construction work has been done at Etheridge.
Excellent.
My understanding that we will be moving forward with our threshold inspection on Wednesday, we hope.
Okay.
And as long as all of that goes according to plan, hopefully this problem will be in our rearview mirror.
You mean we might make the first ballgame?
That is the plan.
Yay.
There is
Excellent.
also, there's a problem with the last set of bleachers on the visitors'
Okay.
side.
Yes, sir.
But there is a plan afoot, I understand,
Okay.
to put a barrier
Sure.
up and address that also. So
That'd be
it's
awesome.
my sincere hope that we will be ready.
I know those kids and band programs, they're hoping for the same thing. All right, well, good work, Mr. Destin and Mr.
Oh, I'm
Chambers and your
just
staff.
following the crowd,
Yeah.
the staff and the Jacob Titan and the folks that have worked on it. I was amazed that they were able to move those big concrete structures as quickly as they did.
Right. Okay, any questions or comments? All right, thank you, sir.
Good news.
All right, so moving on to 12.1, CACI Task Order Number 2-144 OCSD Enterprise CCTV EOC Station, presented by Mr. Dustin Keith, Specialist, Seat Management, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
I'll move.
Motion, Dr. Kelly.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryan. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
Two items, Mr. Chairman. I need to announce for the board that we need to schedule a special board meeting for an attorney-client session in regard to pending litigation. It's an Okaloosa Circuit Court case 2018 CA 002132F. And unless there's objection from the board, we propose to schedule that for the morning before your next workshop, which is September 5th at 8:15 a.m.
Do you require a motion?
No, sir, just wanted to inform you publicly of the scheduling of that, and the
Everybody
chairman
okay with all
can
that?
do that.
Sounds good.
Secondly, in the event that we are served with litigation before the next meeting in the matter of Ms. Jackson, I would ask tonight that the board authorize the superintendent to approve a retainer agreement with a defense firm. We'll recommend to him a firm to handle that. I just don't want to lose time in the event we get served before we can get back to you for that vote.
All right, so this you do require a motion, I
Yes,
think.
sir.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second, Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, so Superintendent, coming to your business, you've got some out-of-state field trip requests, and you may have other items, sir.
Yes, sir. So on Thursday, I had some lengthy remarks on different parts of the start of the school years, and I'm not going to go through all of that again, but I do want to reiterate a little bit of what Mr. Destin did talk about in terms of the Choctaw Stadium. Many of you may know when this first occurred, one of the bright spots early on was the fact that the communities of Fort Walton Beach High School Niceville High School, Crestview High School, all reached out to Choctaw High School to offer their help, to offer their fields and anything that they could do for Choctaw. And to me, when you talk about football, when you talk about bands, and you talk about rivalries, and when they all come together to help one of their fellow schools, I think that that is absolutely fantastic. And I also want to thank Lord and Sons and Jacob's Titan for the work that they're still doing. Now, this isn't done yet, but for the work that they've been doing. Mr. Destin, he has been extremely integral in this process, and as well as Mr. Horton and his staff. So a lot of time and attention has gone into this, and we do believe that we'll be able to make that September 6th ball game, and that is the hope. But a lot has gone into that, so extremely grateful for that. Also, like I mentioned, I'm not going to go into all the things I talked about, but I will say this: the start of a school year does not go off well accidentally. And a lot of people sometimes will ask different educators, do you work during the summer? And they'll ask the principals, do you work during the summer? I've been asked, do you work during the summer? And the answer for many times is yes. But even our teachers who are 10-month employees, a lot of our staff who are 10-month employees, they're working hard during the summer on times when they're not being paid, so to speak, because they're 10-month employees. And when you work so hard during the summer, that's why the start of a school year can go off so smoothly. Now, we're not perfect by any means, and we've had some concerns that have been brought to us by parents, and the thing that I do appreciate is the fact that we're able to work through them together. I just want to once again say to Mr. J. McGinnis, Mr. J. McGinnis in transportation, they have done a great job of communicating with parents and families, making adjustments where need be, and it's been a great start to the school year.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. All right, that takes us to board members' announcements, and Mr. Destin, I'll start with you.
I don't think I have anything tonight, Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bryan?
Just one quick thing. In my journey throughout the district the last couple of weeks, you get to see a lot of interesting things in the schools. But, the one thing that always stands out is how educators, everybody comes together to provide that sense of security for those children in our schools. But our SROs, always take a chance to recognize them. But I was at one school the other day, and our SRO going out of their way to make sure umbrella over the head of a student, making sure they're getting into the car. But, one of our SROs is here tonight, but just our great SROs who've done a great job in helping with the safety component of things in the schools. So I just wanted to give them a shout out again.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Dr. Kelly.
Okay. Well, I don't think that she's here tonight, but I think we all know Terry Schroeder and her group, the School Health Advisory Committee, and I'm pleased to be a part of that committee. We meet at least monthly, sometimes a little bit more, and at least talk about new policies. But she would not brag on herself, but she and the School Health Advisory Committee have again been given a distinction from the state, and I believe that is based on the school health surveys that are done at the staff level and submitted to the state. So again, congratulations to that group and Ms. Schroeder. She did not want us to make a big deal about it, but of course you know me and my big mouth. When it comes to our staff, I think that we can't say enough good things about all of our staff because they work very, very hard. So I just wanted to put that out there. You heard me say at our workshop that some of us campaigned really hard over a year long, and we've just reached our year-long first anniversary, so congratulations, Mr. Bryant. I'm sorry, Dr. White and Linda, for serving a year already. It doesn't seem like it to me. Those of you who know me know that I'm a calendar keeper, and I do count down. I can't count down to the start of school anymore, Mr. Chambers, but I can count down to the end of the semester. And I know principals out there are already looking at their calendar and going, in 4 months, we will break for Christmas. Less than 75 school days left. So, and we all know what that encompasses. So kudos to all of those at the school level who are working so hard diligently to keep us in a school in the remaining 75 days of the first semester. And lastly, I'll just say that some of you may know that I also serve as the liaison for the Florida Association for Arts and Education, and there are 2 important dates coming up. I'll mention them a little in advance because they require some planning. I know that you probably have staff involved in that. One is the passed by Congress in 2010, the Resolution 275 designates September 8th through 14th as Arts and Education Week, so we have grades 6 through 8 participating in that. I know we have plans coming up, and some of your staff may want to say more about that later. But then also the 2020 Arts in the Capitol competition, that's coming up in January, but legislation again directs that our students have their artwork in 90 days before the session starts, which would make it November. So we have two important arts and education events coming up. I know your staff will address those later, but that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Ms. Evanchek.
Yes. Hi. Well, we're talking about the stadium, and I was pointing out before the meeting that all of our high school football teams were successful Friday night, and off to a great start, and we're glad to see that and congratulate the students and those coaches along with the band programs. Also, I am the liaison person for our Public Schools Foundation, and we have been out in the schools kicking off our program for this year. Also, we've gained a lot new members onto the foundation. It's grown quite a bit, and that's great. And one of the main projects is to have mentors for our students. And for those in the public, if you would like to be a mentor, it's a pretty easy process, and we need mentors. We have students who would like to have a mentor come in and work with them. It's a pretty small amount of time for the great impact that you would make. So if you go to the Okaloosa Schools website, you can see how you could become a mentor there. And it's a very rewarding program, and it's not too late. We're just getting going, and those students need you. So if you'd like to do that, I'd like to encourage you to be a mentor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evanchek. All right, so that takes us through Section 15. Moving on to Section 16 would be public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to address the school board? Mr. Early, I see you raising your hand.
Dr. White, I'll fill out the card and get back in.
Sure, that'd be fine.
Hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but Pat's comments and Mr. McGinnis' comments reminded me of something else. At no fault of your own, at no fault of the school districts, okay, we're being hit with demand for legal payments, okay? Pat's got a good point. The governor's actions shortchanged the Senate's action, and without the Senate action, there was no finding by the Senate to decide who was to pay the legal fee or not pay the legal fee, which puts us in a situation where the demand is upon y'all right now. I've written the governor, I've written the Commissioner of Education, but have y'all? Okay, plain and simple, we're getting hit with something that's not ours to pay, not budgeted, not within our system or anything else. After listening to the Commissioner's comments last week when he was down here for a visit, if that's how the governor and the Commissioner actually feel, then please write the governor and the Commissioner and ask them to take on this bill themselves. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments, board members? All right, thank you, Mr. Early.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that wraps up the agenda for this evening. Mr. Attorney, is there anything we need to cover? Mr. Chambers, you're good with your staff?
We're good.
Okay, colleagues, we're all good? Everyone good? All right, this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.